at here is the setup that you're going to use for lab number 6, cellular respiration fermentation. And so in the instructions, it gives you the items that are located in your kit that you're going to use. These are called the conical tubes. So you're going to have 3 of those. One of these tubes came from the chemistry lab that you did earlier, and you were supposed to wash it out when you were finished. So you should have 3. You are going to label these 3. You're going to label one with the letter C, that's for control. You're going to label one with E1 for experiment 1, and then E2 for experiment 2. You'll use this cup to hold them upright as they're doing their thing. So on the previous slides, we talked about what fermentation was, and we said that yeast will ferment. And so in your packet, the yeast that you're going to be using is the grainy stuff in the bottom of your little bag. So this is your dry yeast. The food source that the yeast will be using for fermenting is the sugar in the little bag that you see here. And then you're going to set up your apparatus to where you're going to have these little balloons on the top of these conical tubes after you've added the materials to them. And so that the little balloons are going to trap the gas that the yeast produce when they ferment. And remember that that gas that it will be trapping is carbon dioxide. Okay, so you're going to need to provide water. So you're going to have room temperature water. You're going to have warm tap water. You're going to make a paper funnel, and the instructions explain how to do that. And you're going to need a spoon and some tape. And the tape is to secure the funnel at the end once you've made it. So following the instructions, the first thing you need to do is you need to mark your conical tubes, and you're going to be marking them by using the ruler. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to measure, let me use this one, here we go. On all 3 of the tubes, you're going to measure 1.5 centimeters from the bottom. So I line up my ruler, I have 0, so I line the bottom up at the 0, go to 1, go to 1.5. Take your water-soluble marker and make a line right at that 1.5 centimeter mark. And you're going to make that mark on all 3 tubes. Then you're going to go back and you're going to add a second mark to E1 and also to E2. So E1 and E2, you're going to go back and you're going to add a second mark at the 2 centimeter mark. Okay, but you don't need the second mark on your control tube. So then it will tell you that for all 3 of the tubes, you're going to add 1.5 centimeters of the yeast. So you're going to add the yeast up to the first line, which is the 1.5 centimeter line. And then to tubes E1 and E2, you're going to take the sugar or the sucrose, and you're going to go ahead and add that all the way up to the 2 centimeter mark for E1 and E2. You will not be adding sugar to your control tube, and that's important to remember. The control tube is a control tube because it's going to lack the sugar. So all it's going to have in is yeast, and then you're going to add water. So once you have your yeast added to all 3 tubes, your sugar added to E1 and E2, then you're going to come back and add water to these. So you're going to add room temperature tap water to both tube C and to tube E1. You need to add the water up to the 6 mil mark on the tube. So the way you do that is you read you'll see the little graduations, you'll see the little lines on there with numbers, and those are indicating milliliters. And what you'll see, like on my tube I have here, I see a 2, a 3, and then I see a 5, and then I see a 7. So I have to go right between that 5 and 7. I put a little black dot right there. That's going to be my 6 mil mark. So I would then fill this tube up with just tap water up to that 6 mil mark. You'll do that for your E1 tube as well. For E2, you're using warm water. So you're going to, again, fill with E2 up to the 6 mil mark, which would be about here, with warm tap water. Now, once you've done that, you're going to put the caps on them and you're going to shake them up so that you mix the solution up. Then you're going to remove the cap and you're going to add the balloon to the top. So you're going to stretch the base of this balloon out and you're going to wrap it over the top. You might need some help with this, or you'll need to steady it somewhere as you try to add that to it. Do be careful because they're kind of fragile, so they break. So you have been given some extra balloons in your kit in case that happens. So then once you have those secure, you're going to immediately measure. You're going to, and this will be for time 0. You're going to take your ruler and you're going to measure from the bottom of the tube to the top of the water line. And you're going to write that number down at times 0 in your chart or your table. You're going to let them sit for 5 minutes. You're going to come back and check them again. You're going to do the measurement again. Now, this is important to note. In your control tube, you should not have generated any bubbles. There should not be any foam in the control tube. And that's because that control tube lacks sugar. So there's no fuel source for the yeast to ferment. But you should see some foam into both E1 and E2 because those yeast cells will start to ferment and break down that sugar, and they'll be producing carbon dioxide as a result. The carbon dioxide is what generates the foam that's going to be in your tube. So as it continues to ferment, you're going to be, again, measuring the distance from the bottom of the tube to the top of the foam at time 5 minutes, and then again after 10 minutes, and again after 15 minutes. If it generates enough carbon dioxide, you should see the balloon begin to inflate on the top of your tube. So you're going to be answering questions about this experiment on Canvas. And so let me know if you have any questions. I think it's a fun experiment.